Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not, or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians that choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of the shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rap. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battles cause our impressions of everything that it is. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm giving. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given and if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battles cause I'm a church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battles cause I'm a church.
Hi, this is Karen Ann Harlows. Most materials used are available to the general public at lpedia.org, particularly the LP News issues, which are archived in full. Other items used may be things purchased by me for my personal collection, but I am more than happy to make any of them available as well to any researcher. All party items are public. If you found this disclaimer annoying, you can thank some salty bitches in Colorado.
On the 8th of June 1972, one of the most iconic photographs of the Vietnam War was taken of Pan Thi Kim Phuc, a 9-year-old girl from the South Vietnamese village of Trang Bang. Kim Phuc stayed in hospital for 14 months and underwent a total of 17 surgical procedures and skin transplants before she was allowed to return home. However, she did survive, and having sought political asylum in Canada during an aircraft refueling stop on her honeymoon, she now lives in Ontario.
Tonight on Monday Conference, the homosexual and society. Dennis Altman's argument is a far-reaching and contentious one. What he says homosexuals want is not just tolerance, but acceptance by the community.
In July of 1972, the Washington Star newspaper broke the story about the controversial Tuskegee Institute syphilis experiment. For 40 years, from 1932 until 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service, in partnership with Tuskegee, secretly studied the effects of untreated syphilis in African-American men in Alabama.
The sperm surrounded, the fawn flows by. At each end of Main Street, the hills and the sky, the small town of Claudy, at ease in the sun. Last July in the morning, a new day begun. How peaceful and pretty, if the moment could stop. Michael Henney is straightening things in his shop, and his wife is outside serving petrol. And then a girl takes a cloth to a big window pane. And McCluskey is taking the weight off his feet. And McClelland and Miller are sweeping the street. And delivering milk at the Beaufort Hotel, young Temple's enjoying his first job quite well. And Mrs. McLaughlin is scrubbing her floor. And Artie Holmes crossing the street to a door. And Mrs. Brown, looking around for her cat, goes off up an entry. What's strange about that? Not much. But before she comes back to the road, that strange car parked outside her house will explode, and all of the people I've mentioned outside will be waiting to die, or already have died.
Is it you better now? My microphone connection weird. So you should be able to hear me now. I see the little thing pinging. Let me know if you can't hear me. All right, I will start over with what I was saying. Yes, I see you, Julian and Michael and Lindsay and Dave. Thank you so much for coming by. You should have sound now. No sound? Check it now. Okay, great. My microphone cable came undone. So I'm putting it up a little now. It should be getting a bit better. Let me know. Anyway, we're gonna go with it. Okay, great. I had moved stuff around and my microphone wasn't working. So I always show you guys a montage when we get started of what was going on at the time. And it's not always bad news that I show you guys. It's just that these 2 months were pretty bad. I wasn't aware. Interesting. I wonder why there's no sound on YouTube. Okay, some people have sound. Maybe it's taking a while. I don't really know what's going on. Hopefully it will straighten itself out because it seems like most people have sound and it's showing properly on my screen. Just keep giving me feedback and I'll keep going and hopefully it will work out. Otherwise, maybe we'll disconnect and come back if not everyone has sound. So this time it was pretty much all bad news because a lot of very momentous things happened between June and July of 1972. That iconic photograph of the young Vietnamese girl who was sprayed with napalm. And you want to know something? I have to confess, this is really sad, but I used to get confused with that picture. For some reason, I thought that picture was from Hiroshima. I do not know how I got that all confused, but now I know, which makes sense because I knew the lady was still alive and wasn't super, super elderly, so that makes more sense. I couldn't play the whole clip because, again, that would have been using somebody's whole work product, and forget about copyright, that just isn't the right thing to do. It turns out, if you didn't know with that photograph, that it almost wasn't going to be printed because of the full frontal nudity of the young girl, but then it was decided that the photograph was just too important. And I'm glad that decision was made. I don't think that decision would be made today. Obviously, that's not a child porn picture, and anyone who got titillated by that picture is a sick fuck, and there's really not too much you can do about that. So yes, a lot of really terrible things happened, and there was a comment earlier in chat that said, this is why you can't trust the government. Exactly. And if we think similar things aren't going on today, you're fooling yourselves. And I see Stephen had mentioned that the sound is better now since the last time you watched. I remember when you watched last time, Stephen, I had a different microphone set up. I've gotten some new mics. I figured out this program a little more. I actually had a better mic even to use tonight, but I didn't get the, there's a shock mount that you need for it, but I'll show you all the mic. It's beautiful. Check out this Yeti. I've got a Yeti already, but this is a little bit better because for me and the host that we do on Cult of RONR, but you want to laugh. I didn't get this because I'm a World of Warcraft person, but it's the World of Warcraft special edition, and it's got runes all over it, which is pretty funny. Okay, so yeah, that was a pretty sobering intro video, but I think I've yibbered enough. I'm going to have to move that light up. You see how you can see it there? My husband did a bunch of work in here, and I'm like, what is that? We're going to have to lift that up a little bit. Don't want that in the shot. Okay. Yeah, I love that mic, Lindsay. It's nice. And that light box showing in the screen is really bothering me. I think I can do a zoom and pan on here where I can make that go away. Oh, I can't figure that out. Whatever. Okay, let's go to what we're dealing with today, which is the June-July 1972 issue of LP News. So let's see if I can bring that up. Yes, here we go. So you've got it on the screen. I've got my copy here, and I see the scan. I have many copies of this, and I see that scanned copy that's from LPedia, because again, all of this stuff is publicly available. I don't like the quality of that scan. It seems like I got a better version of it since that time, and I'm going to put up a better scan on LPedia, a sharper one, because that one is a little fuzzy, don't you think? But anyway, it will do for what we're doing today. And thank you, Julian. It's the Legalized Freedom one from the 2016 convention, I believe. Okie dokie. So Hosper's Nathan, 1972. That is what was going on. So May, and here I am with the so's again. We're going to do a drinking game one day, and we will all die of alcohol poisoning before we finish. Oh, I know what I wanted to do before I started this. Okay, let's go back to the full screen here one second. I told you guys last show that I ordered some magazines. They came in. This is that one, Win, Peace, and Freedom, or something like that. But this, we're going to go through this one time. Now, I know it's 71, but this is that raid on the FBI office. And I'm just dying to know what was going on with that. And remember, it said there was either an ad or a write-up in U.S. News and World Report last month. Now, I don't know if I got the right issue, but I'll go through this and see if it's in here. This is the May 8th, 1972 issue. Now, LP News came out May 15th, so this might be the right one. In any event, I think it would be fun to go through this to see what else might have been in the news. Because again, we're trying to get a feel for the whole history, because that does affect politics a whole lot. Wouldn't you agree? I think you would. Yes, okay. All right, now back to the, whatchamacallit, the issue. Okay, here we go. So on Sunday, June 18th, 1972. So I think the convention started on Friday, so it's very similar to what happens today, where we're in a few days before we name our nominees. The first national convention of the Libertarian Party named Dr. John Hospers, chairman of the USC School of Philosophy and author of the widely praised book Libertarianism, which I think might be the next book I'm going to go through on my patron-only book reading thing, as the LP's first presidential candidate. Named as his running mate was Mrs. Toni Nathan of Eugene, Oregon, who has been active in several business ventures, and is currently employed as a radio TV producer. I did not know that. And there's a picture of them. Oh, look how tiny she is. Obviously, she passed away before I joined the party, so I don't know her personally, obviously, and I know very little about Tony Nathan. But man, she is a tiny little lady. Okay. So Dr. Hospers was chosen on the first ballot. That's not that common, but again, this was a smaller convention. I'm not sure how many people were vying for the nomination. Okay, it says only competitor. I guess it answered. I wish I had read on. As you can tell, I'm learning this along with you guys. I didn't read ahead of time. So Dr. Hospers was chosen on the first ballot, winning by a 3-1 margin over his only competitor, James Bryan of Oregon. Is James Bryan still involved in the party? Interesting. Several other candidates were nominated, but all except Mr. Bryan declined, and he was later chosen as a member of the LP Executive Committee. Mrs. Nathan also received her nomination on the first ballot, so we've always done the VP separately from the president. People keep trying to change that to make us like the old parties. Why we would want to be like the old parties is beyond me. I know the theory is, or the idea is, that you don't want to saddle a presidential candidate with a VP candidate that they don't like. To me, and what I'm going to say might offend some people, big surprise, right? I think some of us in this party suffer from the cult of the all-powerful candidate and think that the candidate is everything. It's not. The delegates are more important than the candidate, and the delegates are more important than anything, but the party is more important than the candidate as well. If the delegates want a certain VP candidate that the presidential candidate doesn't like, too bad, so fucking sad. If they don't like it, they can decline the nomination and we can nominate somebody else. My opinion. Don't come for me. And as history has shown, if a very popular presidential candidate really wants a certain VP, they can go up and ask for that VP, and generally they'll get it, even against our better judgment, as what happened with fucking Bill Weld. And Gary Johnson, I blame him for foisting Bill Weld upon us. We liked Gary so much that he expended a lot of political capital and begging us to pick Bill Weld. He nearly seemed like he was going to cry if we didn't pick Bill Weld. And interestingly enough, though I like this other candidate, and he probably didn't have to persuade the delegates too much, Gary did the same thing in 2012 for Judge Jim Gray. Go and watch that convention. This is something that Gary's pulled several times. With Judge Jim Gray, we got an actual libertarian. With Bill Weld, we got a lying snake in the grass. So I hope the delegates have a little bit more wisdom in the future. I am proud to say I did not vote for Bill Weld. I would have rather, as I said, eaten my own small intestine with a spork before voting for Bill Weld. I got up and opposed Bill Weld. But don't even get me started on fucking Bill Weld. Okay. Mrs. Nathan also received her nomination on the first ballot, winning by a similar large margin over her only competitor, Diana Amsden of New Mexico. Diana Amsden was the first, and I'm now giving you some additional information. She's still around. She was the first chair of New Mexico. And the only reason I looked her up, and we will be doing a lot of this in bonus, there's probably going to be 4 or 5 bonus episodes for this episode alone. I ended up looking her up because I was transcribing some things from the 1972 convention tapes, which we do have, and I couldn't understand some of what she said. And some people tracked her down. She was a hardcore objectivist, Ayn Rand person, which you'll be able to tell as we go on. She's no longer interested or involved in the LP. I believe she's a Republican at this point. Again, others were nominated but declined. Diana Amsden was later elected National Secretary of the party. I probably knew that at one time, but I'm learning it again. So she is the first National Secretary. Following the nominations, a motion was made to make them unanimous. That's interesting. They won. What do you want to make them unanimous for? The motion failed, but those who voted against it then introduced a resolution expressing their support for the Hosper's Nathan ticket, which passed unanimously. Interestingly. Okay. The Sunday morning nominating session was the climax of a 4-day convention at which 89 delegates from 23 states, plus over a dozen non-voting observers, deliberated over the party's constitution, bylaws, and platform. Okay, and Lindsay, I do see your comments, and that is fantastic, and I'm going to put those up on the screen at some point. I hope you do stick around towards the part when we do more interaction with comments, because there's something that you said I'd love to interact with you with. But I don't want to do rabbit trails like I normally do with these things. Now, for those of you who are wondering what it means by the party's constitution, because we don't have a constitution any longer. We just have bylaws. It used to be standard practice in organizations to have a constitution, and a bylaws. And the difference was there's a lot of differences. That's more of a Roberts thing, but let's just say that's no longer modern practice. And modern practice is to just have one combined document called the bylaws. At some point, and I don't know when, they did that. They combined the Constitution and the bylaws. But a lot of state parties still have a Constitution and a bylaws. Colorado does. Hopefully they won't for long, but they do right now. The lengthiest debate occurred over the foreign policy section of the platform. You guys think we debate a lot today? Listen to this. That one portion, this lasted over 5 hours, running until 4:30 on Sunday morning. The two areas of greatest dispute were Vietnam and the issue of free trade versus national security. Whether or not the government has the right to outlaw trade with enemy nations. The solution finally agreed upon was to say nothing on these 2 points, leaving each candidate and state or local LP organization free to take their own stance. Now that is interesting and somewhat disturbing, to be honest with you. I cannot believe there was a dispute over Vietnam, but apparently there was. I understand the free trade dispute. I don't agree with the people who would think you can outlaw trade, but I understand why they would have thought that. The second lengthiest debate occurred over the statement of principles. The first draft was submitted to the floor, was deemed less than inspired by almost everyone. The way I describe the first draft is it sounds like it was written by committee. And that is not a compliment to say something sounds like it was written by committee. It ends up sounding like a Xerox instruction manual. Okay. So the content, they didn't dispute. It was just the very stilted writing. Michael, what I meant by the Vietnam comment, and the reason I'm addressing that comment now is because it has to do with what I just said. At this point in 1972, there weren't very many people that were at least involved in freedom movements that thought Vietnam was a good idea and didn't want us to get out yesterday or sooner, particularly because of the draft. So I am surprised there was any kind of dispute. Now, I don't know what the potential plank was that they disputed for 5 hours. So it could have been on a different aspect and I could be like totally off base. But I am interpreting that to mean whether or not Vietnam was a good idea, which surprises me that there would be not a majority to make a statement on that. So that's what I meant by the Vietnam comment. Okay, here we go. So the first draft was less than inspired. and it was voted to let everyone who had an alternative present their thoughts. 7 persons did so, and the delegates then voted to select 3 for final consideration. So this will be the subject of a bonus episode. I've done episodes before on the Statement of Principles, but you can never have too many episodes on the Statement of Principles. I've often, my running joke is I'd get the Statement of Principles tattooed on my ass, and even though baby got back, my ass isn't that big. The 3 versions chosen were those written by Mark Fraser of Massachusetts, Paul Hodgkin of New York, and Dr. Hospers. After further deliberation, Dr. Hospers' version was chosen as the best of the 3, and Dr. Hospers then made a few minor revisions to incorporate ideas suggested from the floor. This revised version was then adopted unanimously on the afternoon of Saturday, June 15th. I think this was the first and last time that anything was ever adopted unanimously by a group of libertarians. Now, I'm assuming he means unanimously and not without objection, because there have been platform planks, at least one other one that's been adopted without objection. That was one that Mike Seebeck and I had submitted to the 2018 convention, and it was our licensure plank, which passed without objection. The Statement of Principles was hailed by many as a historic document, similar in its import to the Declaration of Independence. I mean, I agree, but that is a very lofty statement. A historic parallel was raised by Mr. Willis Stone, the national chairman of the Liberty Amendment Committee. The Liberty Amendment, which I don't know a great deal about, but we will talk about, was a big deal back then. It gets mentioned in a lot of early LP literature, so we're going to become familiar with that. Who addressed the convention as a guest and pointed out that the average age of the delegates to the First Continental Congress was just 31, which also happens to be the average age of the LP's membership. So Dave Davis said, I think you're saying the item under dispute was anti-communism, if I'm understanding your comment correctly. And I don't think so, because I don't think there was any dispute in the party about being anti-communistic. I've never seen any indication of that. The early party was thoroughly anti-communism, anti-socialism, pro-capitalism. In addition to choosing presidential and vice presidential candidates and adopting a platform, the convention delegates also chose party officers and executive committee members to serve for the next 2 years. Chosen as chairman was Susan L. Nolan, former temporary secretary. That is David Nolan's wife. We believe this makes us the only national political party with a female chairman, and that is correct. They were. Chosen as vice chairman was Ed Clark. He later ran for president under our ticket, who is also serving as temporary chairman of the New York LP. Chosen as secretary was Diana Amston, the temporary LP chairman for New Mexico. Chosen as treasurer was Pip Boyles, Colorado, former temporary vice chairman of the National LP and chairman of the 1972 Platform Committee, and also one of the people who was around the original dining room table in Colorado Springs at the home of Luke Zell when the formal paperwork was signed to start the Libertarian Party. Election of the 4 executive committee members at large took 4 ballots. Ooh, interesting. Some 12 people were nominated, and on the first ballot, only 2 people received a majority. Former temporary chairman David F. Nolan, who received votes from 70% of the delegates. I can't believe not 100%. And Oregon's temporary chairman James Bryan with 60%. On the second ballot, none of the remaining nominees received a majority. But on the third ballot, a majority was received by D. Frank Robinson. We know Mr. Robinson, temporary Oklahoma chairman, who also served as Constitution Committee chairman and parliamentarian at the convention. On the fourth ballot, Pat Lowry of Colorado was chosen to fill the remaining at-large spots. Let's go to that page. I realized I came to reading and I didn't switch the page for you. Let me find my little thing here. There we go. And you see a picture there of Dr. Hospers addressing the convention. Check out that funky wallpaper in the background. 1970s, yeah. I like it, but I bet you it was velvet too. And down at the bottom, you see the Liberty Amendment Committee Chairman, Willis Stone. Whoever Eric Wrestling is, he apparently was at the convention. He did all the photographs. Okay. Following the election of the at-large members, there was a break, during which the 8 regional caucuses met to select their respective executive committee representatives. The results of these caucuses are given on the enclosed green sheet. I do not have the enclosed green sheet. That is a shame. Let me double check to make sure. I got my little book here of all the old LP news. And I want to, because some of them I did have the sheets for. And I want to make sure I did not have it for this. Wait a minute here. I might have something from LP3 that I didn't show you guys. No, I did. I just don't remember it. Yeah. There was an order form that I didn't think I showed you guys, but I did. Now that I see it, I remember. So let me continue though. April, May, June, July. Nope, I do not have that green sheet. Those sorts of things are lost to history, at least so far. I am still hoping I find them. I'm very dogged, if you haven't figured out. And I continually watch eBay for people who might be selling these things. Okay, so let's just put that down. Let's go back. Are given on the enclosed green sheet. Only those indicated for regions 1, 2, and 3 are 1, 2, 3, and 8, excuse me, are permanent. The 4 remaining regions will hold regional caucuses to choose permanent ex-com reps, as there are not enough delegates present to hold valid elections at the convention. Interesting. All right. The overwhelming consensus of those present, need a tissue. It gets cold down here in the basement. I freeze my ass off doing this for you guys, just so you know. Sidetrack. Wayne is fantastic, as you guys already know, and he shuts doors like a champ. But we're insulating down here because it gets really cold. And this is in a little corner of the basement. We're actually going to make it a whole room, you know, so it'll be easier to heat up and be more cozy and more private and more soundproofed. Okay. The overwhelming consensus of those present at the convention was that it was the best run and most productive libertarian gathering they had ever attended. The amount accomplished was tremendous, and the spirit of unity and purpose was greater than anyone had believed possible. Anyone who's been to an LP convention, I've only been to 3. Again, I'm not a party old-timer. I think that's true of every LP convention, except perhaps the one that was in Portland, where the Portland Massacre took place. I think the spirit of unity is tremendous at conventions. I can't say for sure what happened after Portland, but judging by what I've heard, a lot of people left with a great sense of bitterness, and that bitterness still remains in the party. It's just now, I think, getting healed. Okay. Press coverage was excellent. We got 2 stories in each of the 2 Denver papers. I'm going to need to look that up on newspapers.com. TV coverage on 2 stations, and several radio interviews. Dr. Hospers was interviewed in depth by one station only minutes after being nominated. And one of the newspaper stories was picked up by UPI and sent out on the National Wire. I have a contact with UPI now, as you guys know from the bonus episodes I did last time. I'll see if I can find that story. Since the convention, both Dr. Hospers and Ms. Nathan have been interviewed many times by radio, TV, and newspapers. Okay. See, now I'm saying okay instead of so. I'm not so sure that's better. But it's all better than going, which I am trying to get away from. All right. Break Free from Big Brother is 1972 campaign theme. Nice theme. After much deliberation and discussion with LP leaders around the country, National LP has designated the phrase Break Free from Big Brother as the 1972 LP campaign theme. Now that is interesting. The LNC, they called it then the Executive Committee, did a campaign theme and not the candidates. Starting immediately, all ads and leaflets issued by National LP will carry this phrase, and we strongly urge all other LP organizations to pick it up for use in their own material. This theme was originally suggested in the form Break Free by D. Frank Robinson, who we all know on Facebook. Upon consultation with other LP leaders and with our advertising agency, John Ziegler Inc. of New York, it was decided to expand on this, making it clear that it is omnipotent government, and by implication, the two-party system that supports big government, that we are urging people to break free from, to seize their own destinies and live as free men. We think this slogan has tremendous potential appeal, and we hope each and every LP member will do his or her best to make it a household phrase between now and November. Wouldn't that be a great theme for the 50th anniversary LP convention in 2022? Maybe we can make that happen. I think it would be good. And to use that retro little, chainy thing. Okay. An apology. Because of the immense amount of work involved in holding the convention, we had to combine the June and July issues of the newsletter. From now on, we'll be back on our regular monthly schedule. Well, help me out so I didn't have 2 months to do. All right. The political perspective, we always do that as a bonus episode, and I'll not change that now. That's the first bonus episode I do. So that will be soon. Probably, if I had to guess, Monday, because I've got a lot of job work to do, and I can't do it tomorrow. So let's just go to that page. That's what will be the first bonus episode. And now we're on the back page, bits and pieces of the LP News. Special campaign fund established. As noted in our March issue, we'll need a lot of money, on the order of $25,000. That's not a lot of money. Not even then, that wasn't a lot of money. In order to get our ideas and candidates the degree of public exposure that's necessary if we're going to produce any significant and lasting effect. Maybe that was a lot of money for 1972, but I don't think for a presidential campaign that was a lot of money. A special campaign fund, which will be used exclusively to cover the expenses of the Hospers Nathan campaign, has been set up. You want to know what I want to know? How far back do the online FEC records go? Do they go back to 1972? I want to know how much they raised. Those old financial records, I don't know if they're in our records anywhere, but I would like to know how much they raised. If anyone happens to know how far back the FEC records go, I'd love to know. I'm sure I could write them and get it, but I don't want to fucking write the government and get them even looking at our shit. We urge all LP members and sympathizers, oh, I did that already? Okay. To contribute as much as they can, as soon as they can. Money is needed now to place the ads and send out the mailings that will bring in the big money. We know that every LP member can afford at least a couple of dollars. Many of you can afford $25, $50, or $100 or more, and we hope that everyone will send their $1 or their $100 to the Hospers Nathan Campaign Fund as soon as possible. Checks should be made out to the Libertarian Party Campaign Fund and sent to the fund at 1415 North El Paso, Colorado Springs, Colorado 80906. Don't ask me why. It's funny that this address is here. This address was in the last LP news, and I go and stalk these addresses that are part of LP history. I go and drive by them. I'm terrible. But this is Colorado Springs. It's a bit far from me, but not terribly. So I looked it up on Zillow. Nice house. At least it is now. It is the former home of Pip Boyles, who we mentioned earlier. A really cute little house. Not little even. I say little for everything. It was a cute, moderately sized house. As a special incentive to think big in making campaign contributions, we have arranged for everyone who contributes $50 or more to receive a personally autographed copy of the $10 hardcover edition of Dr. Hosper's Libertarianism. Status seekers, take heed. I would love to see one of those autographed copies. I wonder if anyone has that. Okay. Rothbard consents to be Hosper's economic advisor. Oh, that's hardcore, man. We've just received word, as of the issue of this newsletter went to press, that noted libertarian economist Murray R. Rothbard has agreed to serve as Dr. Hosper's economic advisor, thus assuring that Hosper's, alone amongst this year's presidential candidates, will be able to draw on the expertise of an economist who really understands economics. We are especially pleased to learn of this development, especially as Murray had been somewhat skeptical of the LP until only a few weeks ago. Another convert. Yeah, I was wondering about that because I know Murray was not a member from the beginning. He became a member sometime between 1972 and 1974. Maybe this is when he became a member. You won't believe this, but that's the headline. We were sent a newspaper clipping from the May 5th Oakland Tribune telling of a notice issued by the Alameda County Welfare Department to a deceased gent in Oakland. The notice read, in part, "You are no longer eligible to receive Medi-Cal benefits, effective February 29th, 1972, because you have died." I'm going to try to find that clipping. Newspapers.com has got all of these papers, so I might need to pay for a subscription and get this. If I get it, I'll show you guys. We've never had a very high opinion of the intelligence of bureaucrats, but we have to admit this is a new low. Now, I don't know how many other history geeks are out there, but I get a thrill out of like finding all this stuff, and I hope you guys love me showing it to you as well. Convention delegate list available. A number of delegates to the National Convention expressed interest in receiving a list of all who were registered with addresses. We now have such a list and will send it free of charge to anyone who was a registered delegate if they'll send a self-addressed stamped envelope, standard business size. Others who wish to have a copy of the list send the envelope and $1 to cover the cost of handling. We do not have a list of these delegates. I'm going to try to piece it together. Dave Davis said $25 for a third party is always a lot of money. Yes and no. It's not for an entire presidential campaign. It is for, definitely for a single donation or even several donations, but for an entire presidential campaign, that's nothing. I don't know. And he asked also, did the FEC exist in 72? I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to try to figure that out. As I said, I only started getting involved in politics when I got involved in the LP in 2014. It's starting to become a while ago now. I still think of myself as brand new, but I guess I'm not. Okay, next title. Big Brother is watching your checkbook. LP member John Hammond of Georgia has forwarded to us some data on the latest form of federal snooping. According to this data, Uncle Sam now requires all banks to keep microfilm copies of all checks written by their clients and make those microcopies available to the Fed snoops upon demand. So if you're writing checks you don't want Big Brother to know about, you'd better stop. Pay in cash or use some private method of transferring funds. So Dave looked up, said the FEC was created in 1974 in response to Watergate, amongst other things. Interesting. New information I did not know. Okay, now this thing with the snooping. We kind of think that that all started with the Patriot Act, but it really didn't. Now, keeping copies of checks, we wouldn't think anything about, would we? We like going on... We've sacrificed a lot of freedom for convenience. You can go on your electronic bank now and see copies of all of your checks, which means that they have them. August newsletter to feature write-ups on state and local LP candidates. Next month, in addition to carrying news on the progress of the Hospers Nathan campaign, we plan to carry write-ups on all LP and LP-endorsed candidates running for state and local office around the country. So if you are running, or there's someone in your state who's running, send us all available info as soon as possible. You want to know what this just made me think, because it also said LP-endorsed candidates. D. Frank can let me know, and we'll be able to figure this out for ourselves, but... because we were so new then, I believe at that point we endorsed candidates from other parties. We don't do that, obviously, anymore. And it's against our bylaws now to do so. And this is another... man, we're going to have a ton of freaking bonus episodes, people. I hope you're ready. Because we have now the platform to go through. We also have the Constitution and bylaws to go through. All right. California LP has Hosper's speeches on tape. I may have these. I don't know, though. Interesting. I'm going to need to take a look. And if they are available, I need to make them publicly available. Because, of course, I only use things here that are publicly available. So Dave Davis said one inflation calculator puts $25,000 in 1972 at $156,310.22 in 2020. Okay. And we've probably have had presidential campaigns run on less than that. Not the better ones, but I bet you, even though this isn't 2020, but crap, who was that guy, the dark horse candidate? Who, like, did his campaign all, like, in a car and couch surfing. Crap, I can't remember who that was. Somebody will remind me, or we'll look it up. What was his name? It was like a complete radical guy. I'm not going to waste my time here with you guys trying to work it out. We'll look it up and figure it out. 2 new life members. Thanks to an order to 2 new life members, William Contos of Illinois became our 3rd lifer in late May, and Frank and Barbie Merriman of Massachusetts took out a joint life membership in June. This makes 4 life members and 1 life-sustaining member to date. Next, Badnarik. That's who it was. Badnarik probably ran under less than 156,000. Libertarianism to be issued in paperback. And that's the version almost everybody has, is the paperback version. Plans are now being finalized to have Nash Publishing bring out a paperback edition of Dr. Hosper's Libertarianism later this summer. The paperback will be billed as a special campaign edition and will probably sell for $2.95. Interesting. I wonder if I have the campaign edition. There's all kinds of crap I got to get out of this newsletter. Also, here, check this out. Also in the works, an LP record to be distributed. An LP record? I'm assuming they're meaning like a record, like record player. I gotta get it. An LP record to be distributed by academic associates. More details next month. I'll have to look at the details next month, but I've got to find that record. All right, and it ends with a quote by H.L. Mencken, What democracy needs most of all is a party that will separate the good that is in it theoretically from the evils that beset it practically, and then try to erect that good into a workable system. What it needs beyond everything is a party of liberty. Wow, that's pretty fantastic, isn't it? Interesting. Okay, let me go to a full screen here and we'll start interacting with some comments. Okay, scenes. Here we go. Yay, I'm learning this program. Damn bra straps, man. You know, I've always said we can put a man on the moon, but we can't make bras that don't have bra straps that fall down. Okay, let's start to go through some of these comments here. Julian Serrano asks, can I become an LP member at 17? You most certainly can. And it depends on what you mean by member. But in any sense that you mean member, you can. I don't know what state you live in. So there's the sense of being registered as a libertarian. I don't know if your state has partisan registration. And if it has partisan registration, if it has what's called pre-registration before you reach the age of majority. Colorado does. People can register to vote at 17 in Colorado, and we do have libertarian registration. But as far as being a party member, we define that a little differently. And yes, you can become a party member. We actually have children, like 5-year-olds that are party members. So yes, you can. All it requires, there's free membership and then there's paid membership. The free membership, all that requires is that you sign the non-aggression pledge, which I'm going to paraphrase, though this might be exact. I certify that I neither believe in nor advocate the initiation of force to achieve social or political goals. I don't think it says physical force. I think it just says force to achieve social or political goals. If you can sign that pledge, you're automatically an LP member. If you can afford it, the yearly dues, if you want to become a sustaining member, is $25 a year. That then gets you certain benefits depending upon what state that you're in, but you can then become a delegate to convention, though some states don't require national membership. Our national bylaws say you either have to be a national member or a member of your state party. Some state parties require both. Also, you get LP News, which is this newsletter, but of course the modern one, which is quarterly now rather than monthly or thereabouts. So yes, I can get you that information, and it's simple to do, and we would love to have you as a member. All right, now I want to go back to those comments by Lindsay. I gotta just scroll through here to find them. They were early on. Okay, here we go. So Lindsay had said, I have to say, as someone who isn't libertarian, but as of this year is considered joining, between your brass tacks approach and the history lessons. Well, thank you very much. And here we'd be glad to answer any of your questions that you have. So I do hope you will consider it. And you had also said, I'm very glad you have ran across. You have yet to join because of the right-left conflict within the party. Has me putting the brakes on it. Okay, that I can understand, though I'm not exactly sure what particular conflict you're referring to. But that's always going to exist. And what I say is that the party is what we make it. Those of us who don't like seeing that push-pull and just wish that we would concentrate on being libertarian, that's one reason why I become so vocal, is to make that happen. I don't like when the party veers to either direction, and we've done both. In 2008, we were catering to the drug warriors, and it was very, very, very right. Now we've gone way too far left, and that needs to just go back to being libertarianism. I am not happy with either swing. And a lot of people today who don't know me particularly well accuse me of, being, a Republican in libertarian clothing or whatever because of how vocal I am against the leftist influences in the party. But I'm only against them because that's what we're dealing with now. I would be just as opposed if we went back to what was going on in 2008, and I'm sure then I would be called a Democrat in libertarian clothing. People can't just seem to wrap their heads around the fact that, no, I'm just a libertarian in libertarian clothing and don't like us kowtowing to either. Particularly, I would not have had as much of a problem if we were talking about the left of 1970s or 1980s, but the left today, they're not liberals. They're not liberals, they're progressives. And I'm going to say something now that's probably really going to trigger some people. In the 70s and 80s, I would say it was probably a lot more fair to say we had a lot in common with both sides, as it were. But today, I don't think that's true. I do not think that is true because the left today are not liberals. They're progressives, and libertarianism has absolutely nothing in common with progressivism. Nothing. You can come for me on that. I normally say that's my opinion. Don't come for me. Come for me because I will die on that hill. We have nothing in common with progressivism. We have a lot in common with liberalism, but not progressivism. So let me put up some of the comments here. So Lindsay has said, I've seen a lot of talking down to those on assistance. I'm a single mom, special needs child due to custody court overreach. Boy, a lot of people can sympathize with that, which has kind of thrown me, going here, into having to live a socialist lifestyle, which I can't stand. Enter COVID. I hear you. It's gotten really hard. I don't like feeling like a hypocrite. So the down talking to those continuing like myself has put me off and made me question. Okay, I completely get that. And here's the problem with today. It's so easy. Our ideology can be black and white, but life isn't black and white. And there are people on assistance today, and it's so easy to say that they shouldn't be. But the government has broken our legs and then handed us crutches. And now we're telling people they shouldn't accept the crutches. But the government is the one that broke our legs in the first place. So we live in a messy society. Nobody today is living completely free of government assistance. It's impossible. The only way you are going to live free of government assistance if you go on the top of one of the Rocky Mountains and shoot yourself in the head. There, you're free. None of us are. We are all taking advantage of subsidized things, and some of us more overtly than others. But if you've driven on the roads, you've taken government assistance. If you're using the internet, you're taking government assistance. It was originally developed for the military. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to become as independent as we can. But we need to stop looking down or chastising people who are in genuine need. Now, there are people who are taking advantage. But most of us do not know other people's situations to be able to judge that. Now, if there are people in your life that you know well, like I've known people in my life who have really, who go into Section 8 housing, even though they could afford not to, by hiding all of their income. I'm sure people will have different opinions on that, but I don't think that's right. Because, they don't need it. And yes, everyone's getting stolen from. But that doesn't give you the right to pillage more. But there are people in genuine need because the state does not allow us to fully flourish. Like if you look in some minority communities, there are people who would be business people today. But between licensing laws and zoning laws and, just all of the freaking taxes and fees, they can never afford to start their business. That's just reality. We need to start to open up the freedom for people to actually prosper before we start belittling people who are using government assistance at this time. That's kind of my view. Where I would, and you've already qualified this, Lindsay, so you definitely would not be such a person. If someone's happy and content to stay on government assistance, I do think that's an attitude to be talked about. But most people aren't. So, you know, we've got a lot to fix in this world to spend our time judging other people right now. That's kind of my view about it. So, Lindsay, you're always going to find people who make themselves feel better and more superior by putting down other people. Perhaps they've never been in the situation where they've needed assistance. When I was growing up, my father was a criminal. He shouldn't have been a criminal because the state made him a criminal. He was a bookie and a drug dealer. I don't mind saying that. And those two things should be legal. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, particularly bookies. I mean, people want to make bets, let them make bets. So he got put away. And my mom had 3 kids, and we were on food stamps and assistance. I didn't know until I was older. I'm trying to think of, I was in 2nd or 3rd grade when he went to jail. And he actually didn't go to jail for his criminal activities. My dad went to jail for refusing to rat. And so he went to jail for 6 months for perjury. Or contempt of court, contempt of court because he wouldn't testify. And I didn't know until I was about 10 or 11 that he actually was in jail. My mom told me he was away at college. I suppose it was a college of a sort. So, yeah, I've been there. And, yeah, if I found myself in hard straits today, what are you going to do? If there isn't a charity to assist you, you know, I've paid into the system. I don't think I'm entitled to take something out, but I also don't think that I would feel really bad about it. I've worked. I've never been unemployed since I was 16 years old. And I forget how old I am. How old am I? I'm 50 something. I don't count anymore. So, you know, I've done my part. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered at all, Lindsay. I mean, that's my perspective. I think that is the perspective of most mature people in the party. But there are a lot of edgelords. There are some people who are libertarians because they think it gives them license to be dicks, just to be honest with you. And there's an article that I would like you to look up. It's by Jeffrey Tucker. And it's called, and this article used to piss me off until I understood it. But the article is called Against Libertarian Brutalism. And I think you would be edified by reading it. When I first read it, I was a brand new libertarian, and what I thought he was doing was trying to water down libertarianism. You know, when you first become a libertarianism, man, you are just like, I'll say the hard things, I'm a badass. But as you are a libertarian for longer, you soften up, you get out of cage stage. If those of you who don't know what cage stage is, it's kind of a Christian concept, but it applies to any new converts. Cage stage is usually the first year after you believe something where you should be locked in a cage because you do more harm than good because you're ignorant. Basically, you're zealous and ignorant, and those two things don't go together. So, yeah, I hope that answered. I wish I could promise you that you'd never encounter that again, but I can't. But I can't promise you that. Things aren't as simplistic as people would like to make it out to be. The way I look at it is you say what the pure doctrine is, and then you try to apply that to a messy world and to frail, fallible, and flawed human beings, because we're not pure and we're not perfect. Jeffrey Tucker wrote that article. Jeffrey Tucker is anything by him you would enjoy. He's very, I call him an empathetic radical. I really, really enjoy Jeffrey Tucker. He used to be with Fee. I'm not sure who he's with now. You'll know you found him when you see the picture. He always wears a bow tie. He's just adorable. So yeah, I would completely recommend that article, and I might do an episode on it, because it's funny how my views changed, and I'm now recommending an article that used to get me angry because I didn't understand what he was saying. But one reason it also kind of rubs me the wrong way is because he's very brilliant. He uses an analogy from architecture. And there's a school in architecture called brutalism, but I guess what got me going is because I love brutalist architecture, and I don't think you can make that analogy. Brutalism has whatever. I love brutalist architecture, so Jeffrey Tucker can fuck off on that. But the way he applies it to libertarianism, he's spot on. But I love me some brutalist architecture. But I love all architecture, but I don't know. I'm in fiction. I'm a big fan of dystopian fiction, and brutalist architecture is very dystopian. So I guess that's probably why I like it. But any of you who are architecture freaks, you'll know what I'm talking about. You either love brutalist architecture or you hate it. I love it. Okay, so let's go back to some more questions. Let's put this up. Define progressivism. It's certainly not for, this is Michael Morrison. It's certainly not for progress. It's often quite reactionary and Luddite. The left of today is collectivist, status, and violent. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. By progressivism, I'm using it as they use it. I'm not using a word and foisting it on people. Most of today's leftists consider themselves progressives. The old school liberals they're finding themselves homeless. But, progressivism is the identity politics, the equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity crowd. The ones that, masturbate to socialism. I mean, that is the progressivism today. And I think the LP is harming itself now by trying to claim we're equally between the left and the right. Today's left and right, maybe historically, because we're not. We simply aren't. We don't have very much. But the funny thing is, today's right isn't conservatism either. I don't know what they've morphed into. The left's morphed into progressivism. The right of today is not old school conservatism. It's this nationalistic, I don't have a word for it yet, and we don't have anything in common with that either. So we, more than ever today, need to just be libertarian and stop comparing ourselves to either of those two. But for some reason, we are just in love with saying that we have a lot in common with today's left, and we fucking don't. We don't. And that's how we're getting identity politics creep into the LP. And kill it with fire. That's all I can say. The creeping progressivism in the LP, kill it with fucking fire. So, okay, so you're in California. I think you can register as a libertarian in California, Julian. There is a fantastic LP in California. I'm going to be in California. I don't know where you're at in California. You don't need to tell me. You're a minor, and I don't want you saying your location publicly, unless it's on your Facebook profile or something like that. But I will be in California the 12th, if that's a Saturday, or the 12th, or whatever's close to the 12th, that's a Saturday, in Sacramento for an anti-lockdown protest. So if you're around there, maybe I'll see you. Says it's amazing in California. College is so damn expensive. So the state of California gets a free year of college, and so does the city of Los Angeles. College wouldn't be so damn expensive if the state moved out of the way. I mean, well, not only moved out of the way, the state and the colleges are a racket because the minute you don't have a profit loss motive, you rack up the prices because you don't have anything to lose. You're not really competing. So with these guaranteed student loans, the colleges know they could just raise the prices however they want, accept anyone on crazy degrees that'll never make money, because they know they're going to get paid no matter what. Even if the student defaults and it ruins their credit forever, the college does not give a shit because they get paid from the federal government. That is the heart of the problems today. So I think that I'm waiting to see if anyone else has anything else they'd like to bring up, because I do love interacting with comments. So I'll give that a few minutes before we close out. Let me see if that switches. Yes, I love my side view here. Every once in a while, I like being in a different frame. So the next, it'll be a bonus Monday, I think. Like, don't hold me to it, but this is what I'm hoping, and I don't know if I'll be able to do it. Let me know if my screen froze, because it doesn't look like it's showing me. So let me go back. It looks like it froze. So let's go to the previous screen. Yeah, it did. Let me try that again. Let me see if it freezes again. I don't know what's going on here. Yep, it's freezing. Interesting. I'm going to need to troubleshoot that after this episode. That is not my program or me. That's something going on with my connection to that camera. Oh, well, I like the side view, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So maybe next week, every night, we'll try to have a bonus, because I'm trying to get caught up on these LP news. Once December comes and goes, for January of 2021, we will be on January of 1973, and there will be a set night that for each month we'll always have a show. So you guys who are interested in this can plan for it. And of course, I do other things on my channel, but the LP history is indeed my great love. Okay, it looks like we are done for tonight. I've got a lot of other things to do. I'm going to be doing another episode later. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it live. It's not history, so I won't be scheduling it ahead of time. If you see me go live, you can join me, but I might pre-record it. I'm going to be talking about some news that came up. It all has to do with Tom Woods in some way, but the way something YouTube did to Tom Woods, and then some comments regarding a guest Tom Woods had on. That guest said something that really was wrong. Well, it wasn't that it's wrong. It's what he didn't say that was wrong. And I want to deal with it. So none of it is bad or really actually about Tom Woods. It's just a little bit about Tom Woods, but that's the unifying factor. Also coming up, I have more on the People's Party. Boy, they've had a few more phone calls. I've got a lot more to add with them. I have some response videos. You guys know I did a response video to Surus with his comments on Joe Jorgensen. And I know, even though he didn't comment or interact with me, I know he watched it, because now he's really precise when he uses the term positive rights and negative rights just piss him off. He doesn't have an answer to it. I can tell he doesn't have an answer to it, because when he mentions negative rights, the last time he just blew up and said, "Don't give me your negative rights, rah, rah, rah." Okay, I can tell I got under your skin, dude. All right, just planted that pebble. Hopefully you'll think about it, because socialism sucks. Okay, that is it for the main broadcast. If I did this right, let me see here. If I did this right, if I mess up something, it's because I started something new with my broadcast. So if it just goes right into the outro, my bad, but I think it should just...
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business.